This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. We have a lot to cover today in regards to a couple murders and abduction, information that has come forth in regards to research done by other people, which is really kind of where I want to start with everything today. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pull up this here presentation. Come on. There we go. Okay. So anyways, I received another email from Moonlight, which I had forwarded all these messages to spam because I just couldn't, somehow we just couldn't communicate together correctly, and emails would get crossed. She would say that she didn't have any type of, good internet. So I'm getting flooded with her emails, but I'm not getting any responses to any of mine. And in that chaos, I made a flippant comment like, have you been drinking? Because, oh my gosh, every time I asked a question, I didn't get a response. I just got flooded with more information that I didn't even know how to put together in the direction in which she was expecting it to have been heard, I assume. Either way, I received that new email today, and I realized that since I had sent them to spam, there are several in there. And so she must have assumed at some point in time that I had been reading her emails when I hadn't. So I see this email that comes in today. It's briefly in my email box before it gets shoveled out to spam. And it started with, Nanette always likes to say my research is hers. And I about fell apart because I have done thousands of hours of research on these cases. One of my downsides with dealing with Moonlight was that she was inundating me with regurgitated facts about cases and people, including like Pat Tan and other people I think she believes is her research, and that I had no concept or knowledge of some of the stuff beforehand. I literally told her that I needed to work in chronological order with this in order to stay with the theme and the things that are happening at the time. And if she had anybody that she knew within those timeframes, that's what she should send me. But I found myself, like I said, I probably have 100 or so emails in a very short period of time from her. And all of it, there's just no possible way for me to go through until I'm in that time frame. And this is kind of one of the points that I'm going to point out here with what she put into this email, which she actually CC'd Sandy Betts and several other people I saw as she's, trying to demean me, telling me or telling everybody else it's demeaning to her that I'm using her research, and then I'm mocking of her research. I'm not mocking of her research. The only thing I said is that the Chevy Biscayne that Nora owned was not an Impala, but she is convinced it was an Impala. So I'm not going to have to, explain that too many times. It's on the podcast. You can see the identification card. You can see the VIN number. You can see how the VIN number matches up to what the Chevy Biscayne was for 1964. So not only was it not an Impala, but it didn't have the long headlights in which the victims at the girls or witnesses at the Lake Berryessa site had come to know as long, straight, rather than rounded headlight or tail lights, which is what would have actually. Oh, you're on the line here with us, Harriet?
Oh yeah, I'm hanging out right now. What I'm hearing, I'm thinking like a code breaker right now. If I would have seen the evidence lately, because I'm knowing now so much of the evidence that was relayed in the UPI. Let's just say somebody says the two girls, Mary and Jane, stated it was a Biscayne.
We're not doing codes right now.
I'm trying to say code words. I'm just trying to say that I would be thinking now as a code breaker, oh, but it is not. It's an Impala. I would anagram all that out to get the message.
Oh, well, no. But it wasn't an
Yeah,
Impala. Chevy, yeah, the
that's
Chevy,
what
the
I'm
Nora.
saying. Yeah,
Right, was a
the
Biscayne, not an Impala. So I'm just trying to state the facts that my research led me to. That
yeah.
wasn't me using her research. And again, 1971, when she introduced it to me, was well before the time frame. I wasn't in 1971 yet. We haven't even got there yet. And this even alludes to the new picture that she sent in her email, which is in 1974, 75. I believe Jack didn't own this truck until this time frame. So again, she's years in advance and telling people that they can use this. I thought it was interesting, though. She points out I've marked in red circular Jack's boots, shoes, the two pines, his shovel, chainsaw, and anomaly in the water. Now, she claims that this is the peak. This is related to the peek through the pines card, stating that that at Hellhole Campground, which I know you know some about Hellhole Campground, but she's really trying to put this all together in regards to the Red Phantom letter, in which he says, put Marco back in the hellhole from whence it came. Now, I want to say this letter is in the 1970s too, 1974, 1975. Again, I'm not at that area. I cannot confirm what year this letter was written, but it may be in time with that picture that Jack took from the campgrounds. But she's making the claims that that's exactly where Jack is at Hellhole Campground, and that you can peek through the pines and see South Lake Tahoe from there, or at least that's the gist I'm getting from it. And then she brings back up these images that we see here, that this great big huge zodiac symbol was found on top of the mountain up in Hellhole, and her conspiracy was that the media was trying to shut it down, keep it from being seen. Everybody was getting blocked out of it, it basically, they were trying to stifle this information. However, plenty of pictures arrive when you Google it, so I can't see how they're stifling it. It's just too much. Either way, that was just my short insert, because to hear her say that I'm using her research, my response to her was like, I've believed in Jack since 2009. I've had all of his properties and his belongings, including the pictures she's using to make the subjective, I guess, nature of what it is she's trying to state in regards to that picture and where he might be. All of these things, they came from me. So if you're saying, and then she says her suspect, which she's alluding to Jack. I'm like, Jack, your suspect? I thought Frank Manali, whoever those other guys were that we were talking about back when she brought that up. Again, those were people from 1976 that she was trying to cram down my throat at a time frame when I was still working on the original 5 suspects from the Zodiac Killer. I don't know. I get exhausted and I get tired from individuals that are...
You're getting sidetracked. I mean, in my opinion, it's a wonderful smokescreen to distract you, and then because good things are, probably going to be needed to be focused on. And I don't know how these people surface. I don't know who she is or how old she is, but
she's deferring to Sandy. Sandy Betts was CC'd in that email, and I thought that's hilarious because Sandy Betts didn't have a good person, and in fact called me asking me who the heck they were and what they were on. We had quite a great conversation over it. But the point being is that she keeps blasting me. Why do you keep emailing me? She told me to basically leave her alone, and she did this in a procession of large font, 36 probably point or higher, all the way down an email about 20-30 times to leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone. I'm like, you're the one emailing me. I'm not asking you to email me. And in fact, when I sent her to spam, it was so that I could stop listening to the nonsense of her bash at 1 minute. I'm going to do something else. I hate this industry and the people that are in it. Well, good. I'm glad that you're able to move on, and I hope that your endeavors go well. And then I'd get a response back about how I'm a jerk. What's that?
I said, you're basically saying, yes, move on, please.
Please. If you're not going to work with me like I asked you to work with me, if you're not going to provide me the information during the proper time frames, I'm having to research every part of this show on a weekly basis. I have to put together new content, do the research, see if these pieces fit, because everything I did 13 years ago or so on this presentation was just me smacking a whole bunch of stuff into the presentation that Jack could be responsible for, not really looking at the evidence, researching who they were, trying to determine whether or not it was up the realm of the Zodiac Killer. I think we've got some good news that is coming out today with some of these things we're going to talk about that will point to some of that stuff. So I'm just going to jump right back in. We left off last week with Ansi. I know I talked to you a little bit about you had mentioned the Ansi peyote button gel.
Yeah, the dirty stuff. But
the dirty stuff. Right. So, and I believe that they had indicated that Anstey was familiar with these drugs, had used these drugs, would have known what too much would have been. The bottom line is I did find the article that said Eva Blau died from shock due to a drug toxicity from mescaline. They were then looking at Anstey for mescaline as well, and did evidently find out that she had passed from mescaline.
I got the decodes of that. I mean, they definitely, according to Jack, died together at the North OHV here in Lower Lake, which leads right directly into the South OHV. But I mean,
who died together?
Died together, and there's drugs. Eva Blau and Marie Anstey, the detectives up here in Lake County and connected to with Napa County, believe that the two had died pretty much together, but the body had been moved. He left a message by moving her body and Lake. Yeah, so I can go on and on.
I thought they were abducted on different days. So we have Anstey on 3/14, and we have Blau on March 3rd.
No, let's see. That's when they were found. But they had found
But she was last seen on March 13th. Anstey was, and my information on. Oh, that's Cosette Ellison. Oops. Okay, Eva Blau was March 3rd.
Yeah.
Why
they're basically connected. From what I got was.
So found March 13th. I'm sorry, she was found March 13th, 1970, in a driveway of a fruit drying yard, and the last time that Anstey was seen was March 13th. Ooh, that makes for some interesting information right there. And they are found in a general location of each other, right?
But
Santa Rosa area.
I'm going to get my book out. It has to do with the main foe for these guys, mainly Jack, is Darlene Farron. Anybody connected in any way, shape, or form, and if they link to other people that are connected indirectly to Hoffa, that's what's gone on with these girls. He's clearing out some people, and he's going after them for their connections to people who were connected to people who killed his boss Bobby Kennedy in the ICU. So,
how did these girls wrap up around that?
Let me get this out. Let me get my glasses. It's because they were buying drugs. Hold on a second. Hold on. I know you're on the phone. I got to get my out. God.
That's okay. I can continue with Judith.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too confused for people, but
have we not? We've not seen those solves yet. Then, right? They're coming up.
Yeah. See. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll make those connections. We'll make those connections then when they come up.
Yeah, because I found it very interesting that it was having to do with the base. I think everybody will know. Yeah, I basically live in this town, and I was like, my God, I just happened to move up here because I had family up here 20-something years ago. And then I was in the Zodiac cases, but they didn't know. And then, lo and behold, there's a lot of activity that was going on circa 1970s in this area.
Yeah.
Connected. Yeah.
Well,
and it was an easy connect. I was going to say it's an easy connect. I've taken the Zodiac Killer road trip from Knoxville. I'm sorry, from Morgan Valley Road that links right into Knoxville, Berryessa Road. And back in the day, circa 1970, you could get there in about 15 minutes. But now,
Right.
because the road is so old and it's in a BLM land area, but I said, wow, this is how Jack got away, logically. He did what he had to
Right.
do in Berryessa and could hop onto the North OHV, to the South OHV, which was in Napa County, and drive and not even be seen and make it into Lower Lake here. Easy. I
Quickly.
mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, that takes us
anyways,
to our next
mhm,
murder, which is Judith Hakari. This is when we come into our first our first nurse that is going to be killed, and we see, I think, a
mhm,
total of 4 that are either killed or missing during this time frame in 1970. So on March 7th of 1970, Judith Hakari was abducted from the Markston Apartments at 11 p.m. after returning home from her shift at Sutter Memorial Hospital in the Sacramento area. She was found April 25th, 1970, by 2 hikers off of Ponderosa Road or Way, near Weimar, California. Now, Weimar is actually up 80. Of course, we can see right here, the red dot is where she was found. And this dot up here that I tracked out about 26 minutes was Nyack. And this is a very familiar area to Jack. He had been driving tow truck in this area just shortly before this move towards the South Lake Tahoe area. So for me, him taking him up the hill to another place where it's mountainous, it's very much like camping areas, pine trees everywhere, easy to dump a body that would go unnoticed, hopefully. But
mhm.
I noted that the Alta Arden and Markston Way in Sacramento was the Alta Arden Apartments, but it turns out it's actually the Markston Apartments. And the car was found in the parking lot of her apartments, but she never made it to her apartment, it appeared. Now, that it's like Donna Lass, who made it home, but I think Donna Lass actually made it into her apartment. Didn't they find cigarette butts in there, and she wasn't a smoker? And that was one of the things that the police department in South Lake Tahoe was investigating with Dennis, wanting Jack's DNA to match to those cigarette butts. Do you know anything about that?
You mean, yeah, Jack, Dennis said that the DNA, because I got it in his files, that the DNA, it came back as Jack's, and it was the South Lake Tahoe DNA, and he's got it in his old files. So, and it was the cigarette butts.
So then
That's
why
my
wouldn't they
understanding.
have, and who has Jack's DNA? I mean, who is sitting on that profile?
That, all I can see is, from what I'm seeing, is I keep on doing these, and this years later, Jack is saying 6 times they did his DNA, while working with Dennis, and it kept on coming back as Jack. So we got a lot of dirty secrets out there,
Well, it'll be interesting to
So,
follow up on that. I do show that further evidence,
yeah.
like the letters to the Sacramento Bee and the Fairfield letters. I had made the assumption early on that this was the killer making his move from one place to the next. And now we start to see the killings that are occurring in Sacramento and moving its way on up, obviously, towards Tahoe area, which you can take the 80 here up through Nyack and just past
Mhm.
Nyack. I know you and I took that drive. We came out about Nyack somewhere when we came in off of, I think it
Mhm.
was it the 50 turns into 89 or something like that?
I
Uh,
believe so, but you know what? You're bringing up something very important. Somebody just recently posted what the old Lincoln Highway used to be, and I
mhm.
can walk it. But you said you used to be able to drive that, but it's been about 50 years since you could drive that section as they moved it. So it's possible that he was able to do just like the North OHV and South OHV down here, drive a military-like vehicle or motorcycle and get from point A to point B without being seen.
And I know
So,
that while he was up there in
yeah,
South Lake Tahoe, he was in possession of a motorcycle that was owned by Doris Reynolds, right? We'll get to that one.
that's what I
Anyways,
understood.
the synopsis on Judith
I
Hakari.
have,
What?
I have was actually the John Walsh Scorpion cipher that was decoded, but it's
Yeah, but
referring
we're not.
to Eva Blau.
Yeah, but
Oh, but it's referring to Eva Blau and Marie Onstay. He's
I
going
know,
back
and we'll
decades.
get to and we'll get to I really have a lot that I can only really stay
Oh,
structured
I'm
in this
sorry.
time frame right now, and we will get to those. Those are not till 1991. Judith
Well, I
Hakari
mean,
was a 20.
I have Judith Hakari, but I started working on hers, the evidence, and it was like mind blowing. So I never finished it. And that's when somebody called me and said, "Why don't you go and can you please skip ahead to the next girl, which was linked into after Marie Onstay and after Eva Blau." But it's interesting you're talking about Judith Hakari. I got a lot of information yielded just by looking at her evidence. And
Gotcha.
she was just hanging out with the wrong people at the wrong time. Again,
Well, and
linked
it
to
becomes a
people that were.
theme. The
Sure.
nurses stuff becomes a theme, and so he is striking out at nurses. You're
Mm-hmm.
trying to show through your solves that he's mad that some type of nurse operation was used to finalize the death of Robert Kennedy. So now all of a sudden we're
But
starting
not
to see
only,
these.
yeah. There's more though. There's other people involved, and
I know.
that she
I'm
was
just trying
involved
to
with.
stay in.
So
I'm just
anyway,
trying to
sorry.
stay in short. Yeah, I'm just trying to stay short
Yeah.
here. And the fact that your solves are indicating that he believes Donna Lass and Darlene Ferrin were involved in some type of a nurse co-op to finish off RK. And then we start seeing nurses that are being killed. So there is some type of
Yeah.
correlation there. On chapter 3, The
Yeah.
Evidence by Dennis Kaufman's book, The Man Behind the Mask, he says, June of 2000, I left Lacey, Washington to head back home to Eugene, Oregon. When I got back, I told Joy that I think Jack might be the Zodiac Killer. She asked me if I had smoked my breakfast. I told her that I was serious and briefly explained what led me to believe this. After hearing the reason, she thought, I'm in the middle of the show. Let me see here. Briefly explain that led me to believe this. After hearing the reason, she thought it was a good possibility that he could be Zodiac. He knew he couldn't do much from there, but he needed to get down here to back to California to speak to Gary, which was Jack's nephew. And I guess Gary did not like his Uncle Jack, so he would be willing to help, Dennis thought. So after talking to Gary, and he told him that he thought Uncle Jack was the Zodiac Killer, I guess Gary took a look at some of that evidence and determined himself too. He was up all night, it says, reading about the Zodiac on the internet. So Dennis and Joy started reading everything. And of course, Gary mentioned that Jack had converted that old school bus into a motorhome in the late 60s. He remembered Jack having a .45 caliber gun, which was also something consistent with what Brian Hartnell had reported. He also remembered hearing Jack and his son Barry talking about this girl they had picked up hitchhiking. They picked her up in a truck and camper and had pulled off the road somewhere and took her into the camper and raped her. This made me wonder if Barry knew who his dad was or maybe even helped. Gosh. Sorry, you guys, my phones are going off and being crazy. So basically he's talking again about other family members who had stories quite like Rick Larson did about burning a man alive in a shack somewhere. So some of that stuff is coinciding with what we know or would think the Zodiac Killer would be possible of doing. Looking at the Fairfield letters and the victims list at this point in time, I really only found murders in Napa and Sacramento at this point. So it does hold some truth, but we still have a long ways to go. And again, these are predicted murders for the future. Did you ever find anything that showed that Fairfield letter where he claimed he was going to take all of those victims from those different places, that there was any truth or backup to that in any later solves?
Not yet. No. All I know is there was the ones that were supposed to be someplace in San Jose that he was possibly alluding to the two girls in San Jose. I'm trying to remember what their names were, but who they might or were going to be. But I haven't found anything yet. I haven't even seen anything in future ones that he's often recapping as to what happened years earlier, was to get the hint that this is the guy who did certain things, So I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen anything. I think that was just all code.
Well, interestingly enough, I noticed that the box that Stephen Dewhurst had put into his book, which is that green metal box you and I are most in. Oh gosh, I can't even think anymore. We're familiar with is because of Dennis carrying this box around, and he stated he had gotten it out of Jack's storage shed, and inside of it were some of these items that I'm looking at, like the yellow knife that he believes was used in Sherry Joe Bates, the pilot pen that was literally had a bent tip on it. It had been so overused. Some pre-cut cord that is wound up in a baggie, some earrings, which we have just been told in the Anstey case that the left earring was removed from her.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to be, I guess, a running theme with the Santa Rosa hitchhikers. I'm not sure. Again, that's something I put in here that I needed to do some research on. And then a couple keys to some lockers and things like that, which we've already heard some information about the keys going back to things like bus stations and railway yards where they have those lockers that you can lock your possessions in while you travel. That seems to also be a theme all the way back to 1945. Hi, Nolan. Good morning.
Yeah.
Are you with us, Nolan?
Wanted to make a quick...
That's okay. I was late too.
Oh, good morning, Nolan.
What's that?
I'm saying good morning to Nolan, but I just found...
I know, I think he froze up.
Second part.
No, there you are.
Yes, good morning. So you asked me, did I see anything, I know about the one about 1970, circa 1970, about the possibility of the two girls at Fairfield or whatever. But what I do have that you hadn't seen, because it was the rest of the Elaine Davis, which was pretty, disgusting and disturbing. The evidence decoded, I don't know how they did this, but it decoded out that he's bringing up that there's future victims coming up. In 1970, it's going to be Hakari, Marie Anstey, Eva Blau, and then Sam Giancana, NAG, Pioneer Trail, CIA, Donna Lass, with a certain social security number in the suit, all DOA, dead on arrival.
What solve is that?
This is the rest that you didn't see, that I'll have to send it to you, about Elaine Davis. And it's the evidence.
No. I know, but where did you get that? Where did you get that solve from?
It's from the evidence. It's from the evidence, and it's just the list of all the evidence, how her clothes were laid out certain ways. And, oh my God, it's very confusing. But he is predicting that Hakari and Anstey and Eva Blau and Donna Lass are all going to be future victims, and they're going to have something to do with this OHV right here in Lower Lake, California, because of what's going on.
All right.
So I'd like to, but he's very good at being able. Oh, he's also bringing up that Leona Roberts and Ballo, her boyfriend. And I can't say what he says there, because he's apparently not being a voyeur, but there's a lot of things going on, and there's reasons why they're going to die. So anyways,
I gotta move that up. Right. Yeah. And maybe you will show me that one day, but if it isn't, I'm usually trying to stick just to the messages. So I'm not sure. I never know how that thing works. And like you said, it's very confusing. So we'll have to touch that one at a later date. Right now, I'm going to climb into Kathleen Johns and her abduction. So Dennis was scheduled to meet with Kathleen Johns, and he was put up in a hotel the night before the meeting by the FBI or the PD. I'm not sure which one. I thought he said the FBI. And he arrived at the hotel, and that evening, I guess when he woke up the next morning, he was told that Kathleen Johns had had a heart attack the night before and died. So I don't know if, it all was extremely, maybe it was just too much for her. Maybe she was elderly and her heart couldn't, handle the shock of what she might see. I don't know. It just seems really coincidental that she dies of a heart attack the night before. Anyways, Dennis talks. She
really wanted to talk, and I'm like you. I'm wondering what really happened. Dennis said that was bizarre. She
absolutely
was ready to talk and give information. Yeah, that's. And poof, she's gone.
What was that, Nolan?
That's really fishy. It's weird how certain witnesses and disappear right before they're supposed to meet with people or investigators.
And I don't know that he had her
Dorothy
address.
Kilgallen. What happened to Dorothy Kilgallen? She was ready to talk, and boom, she was gone.
She was suicidal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
I wonder to any degree whether or not there was literally going to be any meeting to begin with. It's not like Dennis had her address. He was being taken there by law enforcement, not on his own accord. And that's why he was put up by them in a hotel the night before in the Sonoma County area so that he could be there when they made that trip in the morning. So again, like I said, a very odd situation that occurred. Now, March 22nd of 1970, Kathleen Johns is abducted with her baby from the Modesto area. She identifies the composite of the Zodiac in the police station as her abductor. We do have the audio that we looked at with Tom Connor about Kathleen Johns when Dennis was attempting to actually talk with her, speak with her, show her Jack's picture, let her hear his voice, all of these things that would have helped her to come to a conclusion if Jack was in fact that abductor. And that was pretty much squashed. And I think that was likely, since Brian Hartnell won't speak and Michael Mageau has been all over the board, probably the last person that could have made an effective ID on Jack. The report that they gave us was that he received a call from the Patterson PD to meet the complainant at their sister's regarding an incident which occurred in the county area. Arrived at the Patterson PD at 2:50 a.m., contacted the complainant, who stated at approximately 11:15 p.m. on March 22nd, 1970, she had been driving on Highway 132 near Interstate 5 when she observed a late model vehicle, light tan in color, no other description, following her and blinking its lights as if the operator of the vehicle desired the complainant to stop. Complainant stated she stopped her vehicle, a 1957 Chevrolet Southwest bearing California license BOJ 518, somewhere in the area of Highway 132 and Interstate 5. She advised that the exact area is unfamiliar to her and that she was not sure where the vehicle had been stopped. Now, mind you guys, she's moving from the San Bernardino area up here to this direction, at least on the stuff that I'm reading. So yes, she wouldn't have been familiar with it. Complainant stated that a white male, approximately 30 years old, 5'9", 160 pounds, dark hair, wearing black rimmed plastic glasses, wearing a dark shirt, ski jacket, and dark blue bell-bottom pants. Now, this certainly sounds like the type of clothing that the Zodiac's been quoted as wearing. Approached her vehicle and advised her that her left rear wheel of her vehicle was wobbling and that he would repair the malfunction. Complainant, so here we have the fixing of the car, or actually the sabotaging. Complainant stated that she stayed in her vehicle and observed the suspect take a tire tool to the rear of her vehicle and work on the wheel for approximately 1 to 2 minutes, at which time the suspect approached the complainant and advised her the wheel was okay at this time and that she could go ahead and proceed. The complainant then observed the suspect pull away from the roadway and proceed from the area. Mm-hmm. Complainant stated she started her vehicle and was attempting to pull away from the curb when the vehicle came to a lurching stop, at which time she exited the vehicle in an attempt to ascertain what the problem was. She discovered that the left rear wheel had fallen off the vehicle and it had only been secured by one lug bolt. So clearly the individual has taken off her lug nuts at this point. She's been driving for miles and her vehicle was absolutely fine. So up until this point, she likely had all of her lug nuts. Stated at the time she observed the suspect return to his vehicle and he advised her he would transport her to a service station in order to have the vehicle repaired. The complainant entered the suspect's vehicle carrying her small daughter, approximately 10 months old, and left the area under the pretense that the suspect, I don't know what that says there, attempting to locate was attempting to locate a service station. The complainant stated the suspect drove around in the county area, possibly near Tracy, for approximately 1 hour to 1.5 hours. And several times she had asked the suspect if he intended to stop at a station in order, or in some of this is just so complicated to read, for her to get help, to have her vehicle repaired. Complainant stated the suspect was quite friendly with her, did not make any advance towards her or threats towards her, and when asked if he was going to stop, he would merely elude the question and start talking about something else. She became quite frightened, feeling that possibly the suspect intended to do some physical injury to her, and that when the suspect stopped at a stop sign, the exact area or location unknown, she jumped from the vehicle carrying her daughter and ran into a field nearby, hiding from the suspect. Complainant stated the suspect merely closed the door that the complainant had opened in order to leave the vehicle and then had driven away. She stated she stopped a vehicle on the roadway and had advised the occupants of some of what has occurred. The occupants of the vehicle had transported her to Patterson PD in order for her to seek help. So that was basically just the police report. It was very vague. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know where she was stopped. There was a lot of things that she was unaware of. And how could you be aware of? I mean, typically speaking, when you're a passenger, you're not really paying attention to things, but I'm sure at some point she had to start paying attention because she was getting concerned that she was being hijacked or abducted.
She was coming from San Bernardino, the county or the city.
I don't know. It's in these articles that we're going to cover. So it says Road with Zodiac woman claims Stanislaus County Sheriff's deputies today were questioning a woman what's that? I think you're having some like in and
She's
out
from San Bernardino, which is on the way to Petaluma. Yeah.
Right. So today we're
okay. That's interesting. you have to know something's going on with huge at that time with San Bernardino. Anyways, we'll get to that at some point.
We're questioning a woman motorist who told of being taken for a tense 2-hour ride last night by a man who said he was by a man who she said was a dead ringer for the Zodiac Killer. Miss Kathleen Johns of San Bernardino, there it says, she said she left her home about 4:30 yesterday afternoon and headed up Highway 132 to visit her mother in Petaluma. Miss Johns, who is 7 months pregnant, had her year-old daughter with her. About 11:30 p.m., she said, near the town of Patterson. So this is all pretty much. So he began blinking his lights at her. She pulled over as did the other car. A man leaned out and said that her left rear wheel was loose. Sure enough, she said there was only one lug nut on the wheel. The man then offered to drive her to a garage, and Miss Johns entered his car. However, she had left the keys in her car's ignition. I thought this was important to point out because we're going to talk later when they find her car, she says the man went back to her car, she said, turned off the lights and pocketed the keys. She never got them back, she said, so they were never found. Then began a weird 2-hour ride. Miss Johns said at no time did the man make any advances to where we read that, despite her pleas to find a garage. After 2 hours, Miss Johns said she jumped out of the car at a stop sign, clutching her daughter. The man made no attempt to stop her, but drove on. Stumbling down the road, she was picked up by a farmer and his 2 sons and taken to the police headquarters in Patterson. As she entered the police station, Miss Johns spotted a Zodiac wanted poster in the wall facing the door, bearing a mock-up drawing of the fugitive Mad Slayer. She began to cry and scream, "That's the man, my God, that's the man who picked us up." Adding a weird touch to her story, to the story, is the fact that about an hour later, Miss Johns' car was found on Highway 132, burned. Somebody had put the torch to it.
So
some of her...
You're reminding me, I got to do the Kathleen Johns letter. I've skipped over so many when I was getting so excited. That's the one I got to do too, but that's coming up in the next couple of weeks for me to do. But there's things I'm seeing about San Bernardino, enlightening amen, and with kind of like Charles Manson issues. This brings us all back to circa 1970. There's a lot going on, and wow, Jack is a busy guy with the other people, but definitely Jack. So there was a reason why she was picked up, And
Nolan, you were trying to say something. Let's see if we can get Nolan in here.
Yeah. the vehicle ruse is similar MO to what happened in Riverside.
Right.
Remember, he disabled the vehicle in Riverside before killing,
and then obviously offered a system. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're continuing to see this. In fact, Ansty, who we just covered last week, her vehicle was found inoperable in front of an animal shelter. So she basically, so basically, again, we have a vehicle that's disabled. Very familiar.
Yeah.
So kind of some of the things in the articles that I wanted to put together for everybody was this one article that came out in regards to both Sherry Jo Bates being a connection to the Kathleen Johns abduction and some of the information that came out of that. It says there has never been any question the confession from the Sherry Jo Bates murderer in it included details about the crime police had kept top secret, in particular the fact Miss Bates' car had been sabotaged by pulling out the middle wire of the distributor. So they knew automatically that the confession letter was from her killer. They remained there until last week when the Chronicle, so basically the letters had remained with the Riverside PD until the Chronicle learned of their existence, examined them, and then pointed out to Riverside police that the penciled printing bears eerie and strong resemblance to that of the Zodiac's felt tip pen lettering in the numerous communications he has sent to the newspaper. That the printing on the Bates had to die envelope seemed to match exactly the desktop poem. And perhaps the most meaningful discovery was that the two of the three notes had been signed with a Z at the bottom. Other similarities between Miss Bates' murder and Zodiac's known killers were also pointed out by the Chronicle in 3 days of the investigation and conferences with police in Riverside. The C2 handwriting expert Sherwood Morrill, after preliminary examination of the Riverside evidence, said it is quite possible the Zodiac Killer authored the notes and poem. There are minor differences, but, says Morrill, this could be due to Zodiac's ever-worsening mental condition, a murderer growing more and more confident he can kill at will. And that's something I've talked about many times, is that his messages back as early as lipstick killings were baby messages. You get into things like Black Dahlia and Sherry Jo Bates. Again, very short messages. I want to say the only letter-sized message in Black Dahlia, correct me if I'm wrong, is just the Dear Mary or Sorry Mary letter, right?
Oh God, I think one more.
He really didn't.
More, but
he was primarily postcards, right? In Black Dahlia.
Yeah, he was. Postcard, the postcard king. Never mind.
So I know.
The SLA one. So,
but what I'm saying is that they were small messages. Yeah,
he was just getting started.
Yeah, small baby messages, working his way up.
CIA intel stuff.
Yeah, a murderer that's growing more and more confident.
It was intel. Yeah.
So, as far as the car. As far as the car in this information, it says if the man who signed the note Z is, as police here now tend to believe, Zodiac, they consider it likely he is also the killer who sabotaged Miss Bates' car and then lured her to her death. They are not without reason excitedly working to determine if the presumed initials RH on the poem might not be those of Zodiac, who has many times boasted in his writings.
I'm sorry.
Randolph Hearst. Yeah, no. I know that's where we've gone to with it. Of having included clues to his identity. Additional descriptive details about Zodiac have also been obtained by the Chronicle in an exclusive interview with one intended victim who by chance escaped unscathed. Kathleen Johns, 23, driving from her former home in San Bernardino to the Bay Area to visit relatives on the evening of Sunday, March 22nd, noticed a late model car following her after she passed through Modesto. The driver began blinking his headlights off and on when she turned onto lightly traveled State Highway 132. Eventually, concerned that something was wrong with her car overcame her fear, and she pulled to the side of the road and stopped. So did the following car. A man, clean-shaven and neatly dressed, approached, said her left rear wheel was wobbling and that he'd fix it if she'd like. Miss Johns breathed a sigh of relief and readily accepted the offer. It's all fixed now, he told her a few minutes later, then headed for his car. The wheel. Miss Johns started to drive away. She went but a few feet. Then the left rear wheel fell off and the station wagon thudded to a stop. The man came back, said with a sincere smile, "The trouble's worse than I thought," and offered her a ride to a brightly lit service station visibly a quarter mile up the road. Miss Johns and her 10-month-old daughter had her 10-month-old daughter to worry about and 7 months pregnant. Besides, gratefully accepted, and with the child, Jennifer got into the stranger's car because he seemed so nice. Those are some scary thoughts.
That's how Jack got away with. Well, Jack got away with a lot of things that he was doing because he seemed so innocuous looking. He had the lumbering gait. He was clean shaven. This was during the hippie days, So I don't think he intended to kill her, but I think he intended to kind of send a message, and we'll find that out as time goes on, because of people that she's connected to, whether willingly or unwillingly, because she survived for a reason, so did the 2 kids. But did we ever hear what happened to her 2 children? I don't remember.
No, not at
message board,
I know,
So,
not at this point. We haven't. We've got about 5 minutes left,
Yeah.
so we're going to see if I can, how much more of this information I can get through.
Go for it.
She did say once inside the car, the stranger had proceeded to drive off the highway into a network of deserted farm roads. Thinking him a man about to make a pass, she sarcastically asked, "Do you always go around helping people like this?" His response was, "When I get through with them, they don't need help." That is very much a Zodiac statement.
Yeah.
She quoted the soft-spoken stranger, which is interesting because also the 911 calls that he had made, they indicated he was very mellow, very monotone, very low-key, not a high-pitched voice, not a deep, low voice. But so this soft-spoken thing is something we're hearing more than once now. After that, for nearly 2 hours, he drove slowly by the farmlands, every so often turning to look at her and say such things as, "I'm going to kill you, and you're going to die." So they're saying that in the first one, it indicated she had no threats from him, that she just felt uneasy because he wasn't coming to a stop. Now we're seeing where she's indicating that he's going to kill her and that you're going to die. So I think this is why people question the viability of her having been abducted by who she says she was abducted by. I just can't see a ploy for wanting any type of publicity through something like this when she was just coming to town to visit family. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But she said, "I was terrified, Miss."
I find curious.
Yes.
One is why did they burn her car? Whoever did it, if it was Jack, it was Zodiac, or Jack is Zodiac, I don't know. But why burn the car? Then the other thing is the route she was taking. Petaluma is off of 101. So was she taking 132 off 5 to get to 101? It's just an odd route to take. Normally you go all the way to Highway 80 and then hit 101 off of 80.
Right. Yeah, so who knows what
of her, maybe she didn't know the right route. She was but yeah, it is a strange rural way to get there, So
yeah, I haven't mapped it out to see what I haven't mapped it out to see what that looks like or how that unfolds. But so she does say that I was terrified. I knew he meant it. He said it over and over in a calm, quiet voice, and you could feel he meant every word. I just sat there waiting for it to happen. Suddenly, the car screeched almost to a stop. The would-be killer had almost driven the wrong direction onto a freeway exit ramp. Now, this differs from the report that we just read that says she stopped at a stop sign. So I what's that?
A lot more detail in this version.
Well, and what was interesting is when when I was wrecked into out there in the Santa Rosa area, I was hit from behind. I literally thought I was at a stop, relaxed, doing nothing. And I had completely erased the whole entire memory of actually seeing the guy with his head beneath his dash because he was looking for something on the floorboard, recognizing he was not going to stop. He was going to kill, or hit me, and that I literally had braced myself, turned my wheel, and pressed on the brake. I had forgotten that I had done all of that in the initial accounts that I gave to my doctor, that I stated I was sitting relaxed at a stop waiting for traffic to move. So I can see how things will come back to you at a later point. For an entire week, that was my story. I was completely relaxed. When it turns out, I after all of the flash came back, I had suffered a concussion. And because of the trauma and the shock of everything that had happened, I had literally compartmentalized that entire act of protecting myself. So she said, suddenly the car screeched almost to a stop. The would-be killer had almost driven the wrong. Oh, we've got 1 minute. All right, you guys. So we are going to actually pick this back up. We're going to continue with the rest of this information here shortly. I want everybody to enjoy their weekend and have a great time. Once again, it is always wonderful to have Nolan and Harriet on here with us, and I look forward to seeing you on this next episode. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you very much.
We'll talk to you shortly.
Oh!